Welcome to the Educational Leadership Podcast, the podcast where education meets innovation and leaders like you transform schools into thriving communities. Join us as we guide you through the ever-evolving world of educational leadership, from strategies that inspire your staff to insights that shape your students' futures. We're here to sharpen your skills, amplify your talents, and ignite your impact. So grab your coffee, a notebook, and most importantly, your growth mindset as we embark on a journey to redefine what it means to lead with purpose and passion. This isn't just a podcast, it's professional development. Let's build better schools together, one episode at a time. Now, here's your host, Principal JL. Today's episode is special. It's the first of a two-part series looking back at the incredible lineup of leaders who have joined us on this podcast in 2025. This year was full of wisdom, full of honesty, full of reminders that leadership isn't a title. It's a choice we make every day to serve our schools, our staff, and our students. So today we're going to revisit each guest and pull out one powerful leadership takeaway and talk about how we can apply it when we get back into our buildings after the holiday break. Without further ado, let's get to part one of this two-part series. Welcome back, everybody, to another exciting episode of the Educational Leadership Podcast. I am so excited to do this year-end review with you guys. I'm doing part one of a two-part series where I'm going to recap every guest that we've had on this show over the last year, in the year 2025. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about, key takeaways and something you can do to apply something from that episode. Now, with these episodes, I'm actually going to hyperlink each episode that I talk about in this episode so you can go to that episode and listen to the full episode if you want to learn more about that guest or when you're interested in more of what I've talked about here today. So I'm going to get things started off with episode 14, Principal Mo, From the Classroom to Prince-Fluencer. Now, the first time I saw Principal Mo, she's on TikTok, right? I'm following her. I'm like kind of new to this stuff. This was like way back in December of last year. And I'm really starting to really get into my podcasting and really looking around what other people are doing. And I ran across her and I started following her. And we talked a little bit back and forth, not too much. But then I got this idea to bring her on the show, and she did. So I was like grateful, like, all right, cool. I got someone to be a guest on my podcast. So with Principal Mo, what she really talks about, some big takeaway you could take about or take from that episode is being your authentic self. Being authentic builds trust faster than perfection. You're not going to be perfect. So Principal Mo reminds us when leaders show who they truly are, when they show their joy, they show their struggles, they can be silly, all those different things that make us human, people connect more deeply. So in this episode, we kind of talk about her journey and how that her authenticity really builds those relationships. So I would encourage you to go back and listen to that. But the one thing I want you to really challenge yourself from this episode is I want you to share one authentic moment with your staff when you get back into the building. You want to share a challenge, share a win, share a story that makes leadership human. You guys show people you are who you are and makes you more human. You're not always you're a leader, but you're not, someone that they have to fear, but they can show that you are a normal person. So that's one takeaway from episode 14 that I would love to share with you guys on that. Now I'm going to go ahead and move along to episode 18, Angela Kelly. Angela Kelly, I've known her for about now almost 4 years now. I'm in her Empower Principals group. I am in her EPCs and I engage with the Facebook format. I engage with those things off and on, but I really enjoy listening to her and somebody that actually has helped me in my leadership journey, but also helped me with, I wouldn't be here podcasting if it wasn't my relationship with Angela Kelly, making me a better principal and learning some things from her. So, things I want to really point to on this episode is reflection is a leadership accelerator. You got to be able to reflect on the things you do. You got to be able to go, how does this impact all these different things? Angela talks about slowing down long enough to examine your practices, not just to survive it, but actually to thrive, right? And so, what you want to do is the challenge is let's build a weekly 10-minute reflection routine. Ask, what did I learn? What did I need? And whom did I serve well? So, those are three different things you can ask yourself on a reflection. So, when you reflect on your leadership, that's going to help transform your leadership. And Angela talks a lot about, her journey, but then how she found coaching and how she's helping other people in the leadership role with her coaching. So I really love that episode and love you guys to check that one out as well. Of course, I want you to check out all these episodes in this year in review. Like I said, all the links will be hyperlinked down in the show notes. So episode 21. Now, if you notice, I've bounced around on these numbers. They're not like I have them lined up because I've done some solo episodes in between these. But episode 21, Dr. Joe Sanfilippo, lead from where you are. I think this episode is great to where you can understand, you don't have to be a principal or administrator to lead from where you are. So I think that's really important to take away. Now, I've seen Dr. Joe Sanfilippo speak at conferences, at different engagements. And so I've seen him for a few years, but one of those things, I just reached out and said, hey, would you be interested? And he was gracious enough to come on. And so that was great to have Dr. Joe Sanfilippo on. So the big takeaway is every role matters. People need to feel seen in the moment they are in. Joe reminds us that leadership is influence, not position. He also talks about find the joy. If you're running around being miserable at work, you're not very joyous. So if you can find the things you can be joyful about, that's something he also talks about as well. So I really want you guys to go back and listen to that episode, and you'll learn more about his journey and kind of what he's been up to lately. The thing you can do with this from this episode, one thing you can apply is you can make a list of 3 staff members you haven't done a shout out lately, or you want to tell them I see you. So you don't have to make a big announcement. I want to do these things. Okay, there's 3 people. I'm going to write them down. I'm going to make sure I intentionally tell them something positive, or go out of my way and say, hey, I really like this, or I really enjoyed this. Hey, you did really good job at this, right? Go and, do a shout out, maybe not in front of people, but just one-on-one in person. I think those are good things to do to help build up your staff morale as well. So that's episode 21, Dr. Joe Sanfilippo. And episode 22, Curtis Houston. Now, I got a hold of Curtis. Was another one of those on in the social media, got connected with him with Dr. Darren Peppard, and so I believe that's kind of our connection there. Him and I started chatting. He's from Canada. He talks about collaborative response and all these different great things, talking about, yes, we have PLCs, but what can we do to strengthen those PLCs as well? So the big takeaway from episode 22 with Curtis Houston is teams solve problems better than individuals, right? Curtis shows us a framework where clarity, collaboration equals improved outcomes for kids. So when you're clear about something and you collaborate, you put those together, you improve the outcomes for kids. So here's what I want you guys to think about. This is an application piece. Ask your PLC one question. What's one thing we can fix together that none of us have fixed alone? Now, this doesn't have to be a PLC group, but this could be a team leadership. So I have a leadership team. I have a school improvement team. You can ask this question. What's one thing we can fix together that none of us can fix alone? That's a really powerful thing. Get people together, get them collaborating. That would be a great episode for you to go back and take a listen to. Now I'm going to go ahead and truck along here. Episode 23 with Coach Tony Kimball. Now, Coach Tony Kimball leading the transformation. At the time, I was following him on YouTube, he was doing these transformational leadership for all 50 states. And it was really cool because you got to listen to all that. I got to be on his show. I asked him to be on mine, and he really graciously accepted it. He usually doesn't do a lot of podcasts, so I was really fortunate that he would come on and share his story as well. Now he's from from Mississippi Delta, and we talked about that. We talked about his career, but one thing I really the big takeaway in this episode is culture changes when adults model the behavior we expect from students. Tony's coaching background proved that consistency beats intensity. So being consistent is better than how intense you are about it. So that's really an important takeaway. So I want you to apply this in, coming up. Pick one expectation you want to tighten up and model relentlessly for the next 10 days. So what is it out there that you as a leader can say, you know what, this is something we really got to get tight on. I have to remind.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
This podcast is a proud member of the Teach Better Podcast Network. Better today, better tomorrow, and the podcast to get you there. Explore more podcasts at www.teachbetterpodcastnetwork.com. Now let's get back to the episode.
Our staff, hey, remember our expectations. We got to get tight on these things and really focus and being relentless and intent on those things for the next 10 days. And these are all things that you can do that you can apply right away. And if you'd like to learn more about his episode, that's episode 23. Now, episode 26, all right, Dr. Josh Wilkin. Now, leading with purpose, the big takeaway here. Now, I've known Josh for a long time. We actually graduated college together. We've known each other on a personal level as well as a professional level. And, Josh has been in the seat, and he's been a principal. He's done all these things. But the one thing that I learned from Josh, or a big takeaway, is the purpose is the compass when the challenges get loud. Okay, when your purpose is what drives you, right? When challenges get loud. Josh taught us to anchor our decisions in missions, not noise. So the application piece is, when facing a tough call, pause and ask yourself, does this decision honor our purpose? So what is your purpose? What is your vision or mission? Is it going to align with that? And when you have to make those tough calls, as long as you know what that is, you can make those decisions and make them easier. So think about those things when you're making those tough calls the next time. Episode 28, Dr. Cynthia Rapedo. Now, her and I, we actually, Podmatch is where I got her information from and learned about her, and we talked a little bit, and she came on the show. So what was really cool about her is, it was one of those deals where I didn't know a lot about her, but we learned about her, and now bringing her on the show was a lot of fun to learn from her. So with her, identity, culture, and leadership is kind of like the overarching theme in that episode. Leaders must know who they are before they can lead others. So that was something that she was big on. You have to know who you are before you can lead others. Cynthia also made it clear that identity isn't a buzzword. It's a leadership strategy. So here's the application from this episode. Write your leadership why, or purpose in this case, is another way you could look at it in one sentence. Use it to guide conversations and decisions. Very similar to what we talked about with Dr. Josh Wilkins. Cynthia Rapedo kind of reinforces that idea, is to understand who you are, what your why is, or your purpose, and use it to guide conversations and decisions that you make down the road. So that's something I want to challenge you with from this episode. Episode 29, Dr. Rachel Edoeket. Now, she was somebody I met on LinkedIn, started following her, started knowing more about her work, and then just reached out and said, hey, would you like to be on the show? And she's like, yeah, I'd love to be on the show. And so really grateful to have her come on as well. The big takeaway, and I've actually seen Dr. Edoeket speak in person at the National Principals Conference this past summer. Joy is fuel, not fluff, right? She talks about the joy keeps schools energized and sustainable. So us as principal, we got to find joy. We got to find balance, right? we can't be go, 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 go and wear it ourselves down. But we also got to find the joy in the job so we can be energized and sustain the job we do. So something you can do is celebrate one staff member publicly this week. Joy multiplies when shared. So when you can share people joy and you show your joy with other people and they share their joy with you, that brings a lot of purpose for you guys. But also, she talks about work-life balance a little bit, or another, a lot of people, with that, she talks about how she puts parameters in place. Hey, these are my non-negotiables. These are things I'm going to do because I got to make sure I take care of my family on top of taking care of my responsibility as a leader. So I would check out that episode, as would be a great one to talk about that work-life balance as well, and kind of her journey when she discovered how to do that. And what I love about her, she gets really real about what her struggles were. And so really check that episode out as well. Moving on to episode 31, Dr. Darren Peppard. He's the road to awesome, right? So he used to be a principal. We call him a recovering high school principal. He also is a superintendent, but he has his own educational consulting business as well. Now he's out there helping leaders like you become better at what you do. And so with Dr. Darren Peppard, when he shared his stories, some big takeaways, and I actually met him online. He actually reached out to me first and said, hey, want to do a podcast swap? I'm like, going, sure. Haven't done that yet. And so we did a podcast swap. I was on his show. He was on my show. And so what was cool about that, the one thing if you have listened to Leaning Into Leadership, you'll understand, you probably hear a lot of what I'm getting ready to say a lot, because this is his purpose, right? What he's driven to do. Culture is not a poster. It's a practice. So Darren taught us that the small moments of intentionality shape the climate of a building. Now, when he's also talking about intentionality, he's talking about clarity too. He talks about clarity and being clear, because clear is kind. And I think that's really important. When you're intentional and you're clear, you're going to be able to build that school culture the way you intend it to be, where people love coming to work. Now, it's not going to be all rosy all the time, but at the same time, it's going to be much better than if you didn't build that intentionally. So here's one thing you can do. Identify one daily habit that reinforces your school culture. Protect it fiercely. So what's one thing you can do that reinforces your school culture? Protect it fiercely. So something I like to do is I like to get out. I like to greet people. I like to talk to people. I will give fist bumps. I will talk to staff. Hey, how's things going? Have those little moments with everybody. Talk to kids, talk to staff. I like to get out of the building. That's one habit I have that reinforces their school culture. But they also see me having fun, being joyous as well. Even on my bad days, I will do my best to, have a great attitude, even though there's times that I don't want to. But I have to, show people, what? Even when I don't feel like it, I can still find the joy in this job. I think that's really important to do. So there's the challenge. Find one habit to reinforce your school culture. Now, episode 32 with Leroy Slanzy, Emotional Schools. Now, Leroy and he was another guy I found on Podmatch when I was using that site to try to find guests on the show. Now, he's from Canada, just like Curtis Houston was, but he really talks a lot about emotional intelligence. And, that is really great stuff that I would really encourage you guys to go back and listen to again. So he talks about emotional intelligence is a leadership superpower. So Leroy helps us see that when we lead with empathy, student behavior and staff morale shifts, right? So when you can be empathetic, you can use your emotional intelligence to see things. You can help those things. You can actually solve those conflicts much better. So here's the application. When conflict arises, ask, what emotion is underneath this behavior? Respond to that, not the surface. So this is where you really got to be in tune with, hey, this staff member, they're upset, but I'm going to try to figure out the root cause of that so I can help solve that so they don't have that feeling anymore. That's the same with kids, how we interact with kids as well. And if you have the ability to recognize people's emotions and find the root causes and help them through those things, and not just because they're mad, take it personally, I think you go a long ways with building the emotional intelligence in your school. So he really talks about emotional intelligence, emotional schools, and how to lead in a capacity that really helps turn those schools around and build that culture. So really encourage you to check out episode 32 with Leroy Slanzy. Moving on to episode 33, Dr. Frank Buck. All right, Dr. Frank Buck, another one off of Podmatch. So if you notice, I've had a few different ways I've found these guys, either social media, a contact that I had previously. Podmatch was another way I was looking around finding guests, as well as doing the other ways as doing it. So Dr. Frank Buck, get organized. He's our organized guru guy. He really has been in the game a long time, and he helps people get organized, be productive. He's got a few books out I would encourage you guys to get. The key takeaway is productivity is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters most. It's not about doing more. It's doing what matters most. And staying organized is the key. So Dr. Buck shows us how systems create freedom. And if you have things in place, how that could take some things off your plate, but create freedom for you as well. So the application from this episode, I really want you to think about is pick one system to automate or streamline this week. Emails, walkthroughs, notes, or tasks, whatever. Make it simple. Try to automate that, streamline it so you can get more time back. So you're not doing these time-consuming tasks. Try to do something to streamline that. So I'd really encourage you to take a listen to episode 33 and learn more about that as well. We're getting close here to the end of part 1. We got about 3 more guests that we'll go over. So I'm going to go ahead. Episode 34, Josh Rowan. Now, I've known Josh since he was in just a kid, right? I actually helped coach his baseball team, or my brother. I can't remember if I coached it or my brother, but he's actually a catcher, right? For a baseball team that I helped coach one time. Or it might have been my brother. I can't remember. I've known him since he was a kid. We grew up in the same town. Now, what's cool about Josh is he was a first-year assistant principal in 2020. 24, 25. So he's a first-year principal. And so I brought him on the show to talk about his experience as a first-year administrator and the things you can learn. Here's the big takeaway from Josh's episode. Your first year will stretch you, but reflection turns survival into growth. So he spent a lot of time reflecting on the lessons he was learning that first year. And because he reflected, he was growing through the process. He didn't know exactly what was going on half the time. I mean, he was learning on the job like we all do as principals. And so he did a lot of reflecting to help himself grow. He reminds us that new leaders need to give themselves grace and stay curious. So you have to go, you know what? I'm not going to be perfect. I'm not going to do everything right. So I have to give myself grace, but I want to stay curious, ask a lot of questions, get to know people. Don't, think like you got all the answers. Those are really important things from that episode you could take away. So here's the application. Start an admin learning log. So 3 sentences per day, you'll thank yourself later, right? So at the end of the day, write 3 sentences about the day. Something that you learned, something you could do better, something that worked really well, something like that to really log those things out. And then really see how you grow and how you reflect over time and see where you're at in a month, 3 months, a year, and see how that goes for you. Episode 34 with Josh Rowan. Go ahead and take a listen to that as well. So episode 35, Todd Bloomer, the blueprint for leadership and family balance. Now, Todd Bloomer, he's been around. He's got a new book out. He's been on all these, a lot of different podcasts, but he's also on TikTok and Instagram. Got to know him through Darren Peppard. He connected us, and that's how I got him on my show. But what's really great about Todd, he's just a down-to-earth dude, man. He's been through it. He's done it. He just retired. He's doing now where he's actually helping other leaders get better. So he's doing some coaching with leaderships, with other principals. And so It's really great to see his TikToks and Instagrams. I would encourage you to follow him. He does like a daily thing every day. So it's really inspirational. I'd really love for you guys to take a listen to that as well. But here's a big takeaway from episode 35. You can be a great leader without sacrificing the people you love most. He really talked about how his family wasn't, at the forefront. He was putting his job over his family, and he learned that he can actually do the job and still have time for still be able to be a good dad. And he talks about, his struggles with that and how maybe he wasn't the best dad at times, but he talks about his growth through that. So he reminds us that boundaries aren't barriers, they're commitments. And I think that's really something you have to really appreciate from this episode. One application you could do is protect one non-negotiable each week, like a family dinner, a workout, coaching your kids' team, something that is not principal related, right? Something that you need to be able to do. He talks about playing Foursquare with his wife every night, right? And something that he does that helps him, reset and helps him connect with his wife every night. And he goes, I wish I would have done this sooner. And he'll talk about that in an episode. I really encourage you to check that out. That's episode 35. And the last episode in part 1 is episode 36 with Casey Watts. Another great person I met through Darren Pepper. Darren Peppers is, he helped me get some of these guests on. So it's been really a great relationship with him. Leading with clarity. Casey Watts, if you know anything about her, if you've seen her on LinkedIn, TikTok, or LinkedIn's mainly where she hangs out, she talks about clarity a lot. Like her and Darren Pepper talk about clarity. It's really important to understand. And the big key takeaway with Casey and talking about her journey is clarity calms the storm. Casey taught us that staff thrive when expectations are simple, consistent, and predictable. So bringing clarity, clear as kind, all those things is really important. The final application for this episode in part 1 for episode 36 is write down one confusing system or process in your building and make it like really clear what that system should be, right? If teachers are coming to you and saying, I really don't understand this part of this system, really take the time to think about it. Well, how am I communicating that? And then get really, really clear with the communication, what that system's supposed to do. And there's times I've had to do that. I've had to take a step back and go, okay, what are they asking? Why? What is it that they're not quite understanding? Because to me, it sounds like it's so simple, right? But maybe not simple for them. So I take a step back and I'm able to just clarify what that system is or what you're trying to communicate. And I think that's really important to do. So find something that people are having a hard time understanding and bring clarity to that. Well, everybody, that's a wrap for part 1 of our 2025 year-end review. 14 great leaders, 14 lessons, 14 ways to get 1% better when we get back into our buildings from the holiday break. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and I'm going to have hyperlinks down at the bottom of this episode so you guys can go in and you can listen to the full episode and see, what your key takeaways are from those episodes as well. So I really encourage that. If this episode really resonated with you, I would ask you guys to please share it with someone that needs to hear it. And I also, if you really like the work that I'm doing, I really love it if you leave a review, because the more reviews that I get, the more this podcast will be pushed out by the algorithm so it could reach more people. And I really appreciate your help if you can do that. Thank you guys for tuning in. I hope you guys have a great holiday break. And always remember to be curious and 1% better. Thank you for sticking around to the very end of this episode. I hope this podcast brings value to you as an educational leader. I would invite you to share this podcast with other educational leaders, or maybe that inspiring teacher who would like to be an educational leader someday. I would also invite you to subscribe and to follow this podcast so you can get the most recent updated episodes when they drop. I would also love it if you leave a review and rate this podcast 5 stars, because that would make this podcast more discoverable to other educators like yourself. You can also follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, X, Threads, and Substack. All you need to do is look for Principal J.O., and boom, there I am. This is where we can continue the conversations from the episodes that you have enjoyed. I am so thankful for you guys for listening. Until next time, always be 1% better.